or if there's an area specifically that you need more information on.
No, well, thank you. That was very detailed. I'll start off just one. So you mentioned now in the last few years, there's been a huge influx of people coming up from the city to the Great Highlands and areas. Yep. So are you thinking that the township is going to rely more on these people to help spur these niche micro businesses, or are you going to still rely on people living within the township that are currently there, or maybe a healthy mix of both?
I think it, Matthew, probably is a healthy mix of both. What we've found is these people who are coming to this area aren't coming, they're not being forced to come to the area. They are coming because they want to embrace the value system that's already here. So the best kind of economic development, and there's always a trick because housing and residential development doesn't necessarily mean sustainability for a community. The biggest danger, in my opinion, of a lot of residential development is that those people who come to live in a community don't engage in a community. So they have no stake in it. They just come and buy their little piece of land. They don't contribute back. They work elsewhere. So you don't want to become a bedroom community. The real value of people who come in is people who volunteer and whose kids play local sports, and those parents or families then get involved to make the place better. So we want to embrace those people, but we also don't want to impose things that disrespect where we've come from. So when you get this mix of people who have been here for generations and new people, there sometimes can become tension. So I think listening to both sides of the needs and wants of both those communities, and both sides being respectful. And I hate using sides because it automatically pits people. We don't want that. So I think the marketplace, Economics 101, the marketplace will dictate where that growth will come. But I think when everybody has a shared philosophy about what matters, it will just happen intrinsically. And we'll know from our work where we focus our efforts.
No, that's great. Thank you very much. Okay. And I'll pass it on now to anyone else in the group.
Claire, you look like you were gonna say something. Are you thinking?
Oh no, you can go ahead, Emily. I can ask after you. Yeah.
Okay. I was just wondering, in terms of people moving up post-pandemic, there was a lot of speculation about sort of a boomerang effect. Like, do you think that the people who are coming up during this time are going to stay, or do you think that they might boomerang back to Toronto as offices recall staff?
So it's interesting. I've done a lot of, we're all listening, like there has been such a shift in everything. And the big thing was, and we're already starting to see it, if we can ever get out of these lockdowns, what does this look like? And there may be a marginal boomerang effect. I am not anticipating that because, one, I think once people get up here, the lifestyle, they're going to embrace the lifestyle. But work has changed now. There is no longer the requirement for people to work 5 days a week in a downtown office space. So I think that I wouldn't want to be the owner of office space in downtown Toronto. I can tell you that because I think it's changed, and I think people are making choices now. I know a lot of people who have chosen to, I'm keeping my job. My work is flexible. I will probably have to go down to Toronto 1 or 2 days a week, but that makes a difference. It's different than a daily 5-day commute or grind. And I think, our work here is to make this a positive experience for people who are coming to the area, which is why even from as we look at development, we need to ensure that we have infrastructure to support these people who are coming. There are expectations around things like internet and services, et cetera. As we develop our downtowns and we look at more commercial development, I think traditional commercial development might be different. I think the kinds of retail experiences that we're going to attract will be different. We're working with our Chamber of Commerce. We think there's going to be more space for co-working. So if I'm working at home all the time and my office was in downtown Toronto, I might not want to, especially if I'm single or young, I might not want to sit in my home office all the time, but there might be an opportunity for co-working space where I can go 1 or 2 days a week and start to network and connect with people who have similar values, who are new to the area. So we're fairly optimistic that, yeah, there's probably going to be some retrenching, but we're not anticipating a lot. And I think the other thing that I should mention, and for all of you who know this area, Grey Highlands, out of all of the municipalities in Grey Highlands, we have the highest seasonal resident population. So those are people who own places here and have their primary residence elsewhere. What we've also observed through this is, since COVID, a lot of those people obviously spent a lot more time up here. And the shift, it used to be where they spend most of their time in their urban place, Toronto primarily, and weekends up here. And we're seeing that being completely reversed now, that the Toronto places are oftentimes what I call the pied-à-terre, the place they go on the weekends or want to go to visit. And this is becoming that they've had 2 years to experience sort of full-time life up here. And that's changing things. And we're also finding that a lot of those seasonal residents might have had small cabins, because it was their weekend playhouse. Many of them are actually selling those properties and wanting to upgrade to larger properties because they said, well, that was great when we were hanging out on the weekend, but we'd like to spend more time here and we want an office space here, et cetera. So there's this whole jiggling sort of where the market is going to land. And I think it's an opportunity for us, and I hate to look at COVID as an opportunity, but we are seeing a lot of resiliency. And I guess another point that just gets me thinking, and it wasn't really directly to your question, Emily, but it's made me think a little bit more about it. And we know this. We did a survey in January, exactly this time last year, with all our businesses to try to understand what the impact of COVID was on our businesses. And we have in Grey Highlands, about 330 businesses. We interviewed 75 with in-depth interviews with these businesses. And surprisingly, the outlook was not bad. Now, that was a year ago, and we've had more closures and more ups and downs for businesses. But what we've seen is a lot of these early adopters to niche micro businesses are filling market gaps. They've been more adaptable, they've been more resilient, they've looked at what the community needs and have found a way to adapt their life to fill those market gaps. And what we have noticed is some of the businesses that have struggled through this were businesses that might have been small businesses that might have been very late in their life cycle. And maybe this was just enough to say, we don't want to reinvent ourselves. We're going to sell the business now, or we're going to close it because we've lived a good life and that's enough. So to support this whole niche micro business, the adaptability of some of these businesses that we've seen and these residents has been astounding.
No, that was really amazing. Thank you for going into detail and moving around that question in those really interesting ways, because it's both relevant to what we're doing here, but also relevant to understanding life at this time, I think. So
yeah, exactly. Any other questions?